Beloved, grace and peace be unto you from God who loves us as mother and father, and Jesus Christ, who always and alone is our resurrected, our risen, our reigning, and our returning Redeemer. I'm Pastor Wesley, and I joyfully welcome you to another episode of Meet the Street, an opportunity to expose you to some of the excellence in the pews of Alfred Street Baptist Church. You never know who you're sitting next to in worship. And during this series, it's our endeavor to expose you to some people who are using their faith and the inspiration of God's word, the motivation that comes by fellowshipping with one another, to go out and pursue their purpose, their assignment, the things which God created them to do and perform in life. And today I am blessed and pleased to present another one of those phenomenal members who you may have never known was doing some of the amazing things that she's doing. Dr. Professor Brittney Boykin, PhD.
PhD.
Welcome back to Alpha Street. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. It's so good to be home.
Listen, you've added some titles to your name since you were last here.
I have.
Yeah, when we first started, and I first met you, were about 17, 18.
It was my senior year of high school.
Getting ready to graduate out of high school. So tell me really quickly, because the world may not know, where did you go after high school? Where did the world take you?
I went to Spelman College.
Okay.
And
how were those 4 years?
Oh my God, amazing, amazing. The HBCU experience is unbelievable.
So you're one of those that Spelman or nothing, right?
Yeah, it's the #1 HBCU in the world, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And where after Spelman? Because obviously there's still a road that leads to the PhD.
Yes, Westminster Choir College.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a conservatory setting, and it's top of the top musicians come from all over the world to study there.
How long was that?
That was about a 2-year program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where after that?
And then I was in Atlanta for a few years to just kind of get my feet wet with the career and job, and then PhD at Georgia State University.
What was your PhD in? Everyone's got a real specific doctoral thesis. At least nerd out for a minute on us.
So the quick answer is music education.
Okay.
But the specific is teaching and learning with an emphasis in music education.
Now, what put education and music together for you? Clearly, you're musically gifted, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But what made you decide you want to pass that gift on to others?
So I didn't. Okay. I actually wanted to do a DMA, which is the performance doctorate in music first, but that did not work out for me. And so I applied for a number of different composition programs to get my doctorate, but they did not accept me. So I was like, okay, let's focus on music education since we're already teaching and doing all of that. So it just seemed like a better fit.
And you're teaching now, right?
I am teaching.
Where are you now?
I'm at Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. So you're not teaching in 3rd grade music class?
Oh, no.
No? Okay.
No,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, but no, yes. So
And how's that going?
I love it. Georgia Tech has some of the brightest students in the world, and they love music, so it makes my job a little bit easier, and I love it.
Okay, so Brittney, you gotta know, I don't know a thing about music, right? The church pays me more not to sing, not to play, so you gotta talk to me like I'm a dummy. Where did you first fall in love with music?
Ooh, my parents will say probably early on, age 3.
Okay.
I've just always known music. Music has always been in our household. They've always sung in the church choirs everywhere we've been, and so they would always kind of bring me along, but I've loved music for as long as I can remember.
When did you start playing?
Probably about age 7, and then when we moved here to DC, my dad was stationed at the Pentagon, and my parents put me in private lessons with Alma Sanford.
Alma Sanford. There's a name that rings a bell here at Alpha Street Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Talk about a perfectionist.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
If I understand, you're one of her top proteges too.
I am, and she was so tough on me one day. I was probably 10 or 11, and I don't think I came prepared to my lesson, and she made me cry.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, I'm done with music. I never want to do music again. And yeah, but I was back the next week.
Back the next week.
Yeah.
And I'm certain as you look back over your life, that name rings high as to how you got to where you are. All of us are indebted to others that God used to get us to where we are.
Yes.
And Sister Sanford's definitely on your list.
She is that woman for me. I mean, she pulled music out of me that I didn't even know was there, and I'm just so grateful to her because I owe everything that I am to that woman.
Wow, wow.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure she's gonna sit back and watch this
I hope so.
and smile, right? And go, yay, Brittney, you done a good job. Yeah, and that's here at Alpha Street. She was a musician in our church family.
Yes,
so
she was.
so is it all right for us to take a little bit of credit of whatever God takes your life? Alpha Street Baptist Church right here, Brittney Boykin, PhD. So you're at Georgia State now.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, you're teaching.
Yes.
You have an opera that you've written.
Yes, I have.
Okay, start with the dum-dums. Tell me what an opera is. How do I distinguish an opera between what I see up on Broadway? What's some of the technical language? How does one get to write an opera?
Yeah, so I'm going to do my best, but this is my first one.
All right.
So I'm new to the genre as well, but the easiest way I can think of is that it's classical. That's the difference from Broadway.
Okay.
So you have opera singers who come and do the characters and tell the story. So it is mostly classical, a classical art form. And yes, I mean, so from orchestrations to piano to figuring out voices and where do the singers go and what story are we telling, like it's very similar to Broadway, but you just think more classical.
When in the world did it cross your mind to write an opera?
Oh, it didn't. It did not. Yeah, people reached out to me. They asked me if I would be interested. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, that's not really my area. I've never done anything like that before, but they seemed very interested and very supportive and said, hey, we have a team that we want to support you and, we want to surround you with the right mentors, so why don't you try it? And I just said, okay, I'll take a leap of faith and I'll try it.
So the opera we're about to talk about is your first foray into writing.
This is my first one.
Wow.
This is my
How was the experience? Did you enjoy it? Was it troublesome? Were there moments where you just said you couldn't do it?
Oh, man, the imposter syndrome was real. I mean, because there aren't a lot of Black composers in the classical art form anyway. So a Black woman composer, you add that layer, it feels a little isolating, feels a little bit lonely. But yeah, I had a great experience. I had a great artistic team. The leadership at the Kennedy Center was just very encouraging, very supportive. So for this to be my first one, I felt like I had the right people behind me.
So let me ask you this. I don't know a lot about music, but I can assume Black in classical is very limited. Black female in classical is even more so.
It is.
And when isolated like that, one can't help but bump against systems of race and ism that exist in every field.
Yes.
That racism is not simply in the school system or on Wall Street, but you probably experience it in the classical musical world as well.
Absolutely.
How have your experience been with race and gender as we look to the great door God has opened? What's the cost behind it that people don't know?
Oh, it's cost me a lot. Sleepless nights, crying, all that. But I mean, throughout my PhD experience, the PhD experience almost broke me, I will say. But even on the other side of that, being a composer, so I go by B.E. Boykin, and people are always like, well, why? Why don't you use your real name? Yeah. And it's because when I first started writing, I couldn't get anyone to publish my music. I couldn't get anyone to even look at it because basically they were like, oh, you're a woman per se, and that's cute. Keep writing. So I figured if I went by my initials that at least it might get me in the door. And so eventually I just decided to keep it even once the opportunities came because they're like, oh, well, now you're a composer, you've made it, even though I haven't, but you've made it, why not go back to your name? And I'm like, well, I think I can own my femininity and my professionalism and own my initials too. So we're gonna keep B.E. Boykin for now.
Oh, wow. So when we see B.E. Boykin, that's us, we claim that.
Yeah, we're claiming all of that.
I got it. Well, one, I pray for God's best for you as you continue to move into the composition field. But tell us a little bit about this opera. I mean, this is landed at the Kennedy Center.
Yes.
Now, I don't know much about music, but I assume not just anything lands at the Kennedy Center. So tell us a little bit about the opera and then how the door to the Kennedy Center opened. Sure.
So the opportunity is called the American Opera Initiative. And so they recruit young composers who are kind of early on in their career to come in and essentially have this team of mentors around them to create their first or maybe their few early on operas. So initially we get together and they say, hey, why don't you present 4 ideas to us? And we're like, okay, so they team you up with a librettist. So the script, like if you were to go to a play or a Broadway show, the text, in opera, it's called a libretto. So you have someone who writes that, they're called a librettist. And so they paired me with my person who just so happens to be my cousin, who I didn't know I was related to until this process. So it was.
Are we all related?
I mean,
talking about God putting it together, right?
For real,
really?
Like we really found out we were related, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, so we came up with some ideas, and Osun was one of them.
Okay.
Osun had been placed on my heart maybe about 2 years ago. I was like, oh, hey, if I ever get a huge opportunity, I would just love to tell the story of Osun. And so we pitched 4 ideas, and they came back and said, we love Osun. So Osun is African mysticism, mythology, or religion, if you will. And it's about the goddess who is bringing everything beautiful, life, fertility, love. She's just everything. And so this is her story, and they loved it.
Wow. So let me ask you a question in terms of composition. So when you're writing out scores and music, like how complicated is that, and how many pieces are you writing for, and how many sounds do you hear in your head, and how do you get that all down on paper? Walk us through a little bit of the creative process.
Okay, so everyone's process is different, but for me, I like to shut everything down, and I can't write unless I'm like inspired or kind of have an idea to kind of work with. But once I have the idea, I shut everything down. I may take a break to eat, but basically I'm not working. I shut my phone off, computer, everything, until the idea is completely out. So sometimes it could take me all day, like 8 to 10 o'clock at night.
And how complicated is it writing all are you writing like every single note?
Every single note is mine. All the instrumentation is mine. But yeah, this is the first opera experience, so I've never written anything for orchestra. And so it took a little bit longer, maybe about a month, I think I was working on parts for violin, viola, cello, but basically it's a chamber orchestra. So there are horns, there's strings, there's woodwinds, there's percussion. It's everything, but this is the first time I've ever done it.
And you're writing all the music out for all these parts?
Everything, yes.
How long is this? So if we go to see Osun, how long is this? Like that's amazing.
It's about 20 minutes. So it's a chamber opera. So most of the time operas are about 45 minutes to maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, that's what I think of in my mind. The 3 hour, Jesus keep me awake.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, they're shorter. It's shorter. So 20 minutes is Osun.
And it's going to be at the Kennedy Center on Saturday the 21st
Correct.
of January. How in the world did B.E. Boykin land at the Kennedy Center?
So last year, they invited me to do a project called the Cartography Project. And so they asked certain composers and artists from different cities that experienced Black Lives Matter to represent those victims of police brutality. And so they asked me to represent Atlanta with Rayshard Brooks. So that was last year. And they enjoyed the piece and asked me to come back for the American Opera Initiative. So that's how that connection was made for the opera.
You know, one of the things I try to tell my sons is never shortchange yourself or do less than your best, because you never know who's watching. You never know what door it's going to open. You never know who's going to mention your name in another conversation that can lead to some amazing things. And clearly, the doors are just beginning to open for you.
Yes, and I'm very grateful. I mean, because I didn't see any of this happening. I was happy kind of writing art song and choir songs, but they were like, oh, you want to write an opera? And I'm like, I've never even thought about doing that.
Would you do it again?
Well, I am going to do it again. We have a few other commissions coming down the pipeline, so I'm excited to do more opera. So more operas are coming. More operas are coming.
So all these doors are opening. What's big in next for you? Clearly, you said some other commissions.
Yes.
Anything else coming up? I mean, we want to know where we should look for the name B.E. Boykin so we can sit back and go, we know that sister.
Man.
She goes to Alfred Street. What else is coming up, or what are you going to put your hands on?
So the next commission is through the Opera America grant. They focused on a lot of women composers this season, and so they just gave us a grant through Finger Lakes Opera. And so that'll be my next opera project, and it's going up 23-24 performance season. And it's called Two Corners, and it's about my late grandmother, Deacon Boykin's mom. And we're going to write a story about her and tell it on the big opera stage.
I think there aren't too many operas about Black grandmamas out in performance right now.
Not too many. Okay. There aren't too many operas about Black stories. So that's why I'm really excited to be in this space and to be a voice and to, create more stories for us, for our culture. So.
You know, I was going to ask you, to whom much is given, much is required. How are you going to open doors for others? But I see already by breaking in with the power of our story.
Our stories.
As being worthy, as told just as Euro-Caucasian stories.
Yeah.
Do you have an opportunity to be a blessing to others in any other way? Are you opening the door for other young women coming after you, or?
I hope so. I mean, I'm trying to be as intentional as possible because I know people did that for me. So whenever I have opportunities like this, I'm always thinking about the younger people behind me and who reach out and say, hey, you know, can you look at this? Can you look at this piece of music? Or do you have any business ideas for me? And I always try to be sure that I respond. But yeah, we need more operas aside from Porgy and Bess and Tremonisha. And so I'm just excited to kind of be a part of that dialogue.
Hey, you're in Meet the Street with an up-and-coming composer who's going to change the game. Brittney, but we go by B.E. Boykin, member of Alpha Street Baptist Church, earned her PhD composing operas now. Brittney, a few quick questions before we end. One, how's your faith informed you or shaped you along this journey? I know you've had to face some obstacles. How has your own faith and belief carried you through to where you are now?
Oh, it's been everything for me. I'm just grateful that I've had a family that has supported me and supported my passion, and a church family, of course. I just think when you have the right people around you to support you, it makes the journey a lot easier. And so I wasn't sure where music would take me. You know, I knew I didn't want to do the whole starving artist thing, but I was like, you know, if I can just do what I love, and as long as I can keep the lights on, you know, that'll be nice.
Well, if you're the king, you say the lights are on, add a little something, huh?
Yeah, so I'm very grateful, but I think I say all that to say, yeah, just trusting and knowing that whatever you love to do, it'll make room for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What words of encouragement would you give to a young up-and-coming composer, artist, someone taking lessons with Sister Sanford right now, who's just getting started? What words of encouragement do you give them about the journey that's ahead?
Oh, what did we always say? Pray, practice, and perform.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pray, practice and perform.
But you got to pray first. You got to leave it there first, and then trust that it's gonna do what it needs to do.
But I'm a big proponent that after you put it in God's hands, God puts it back in yours.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hard work you've had to do to get here.
Hence the practice and the perform.
Right, right. Years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Osun, opera, Kennedy Center, B.E. Boykin, all that comes together at Alpha Street Baptist Church. We are so pleased to support and celebrate your gift and the doors that God is opening. Can't wait to hear all the reviews, what comes up and what comes out next. We gotta get a heads up next time so we can sell it out, have an Alpha Street showing to show the great gift that God has given. This is Brittney Boykin, PhD. Meet the Street. You all join us next time. We'll introduce you to another phenomenal person whose faith and skill and gift is leading them to places that you could never imagine. Brittney, we wish you all the best and pray for God's blessings. May Osun go further and further and further. Amen. Let it be synonymous with Porgy and Bess one day. Thank you all for joining in. We'll catch you next time.